Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast, where empathy meets action in the world of leadership. Your host, Gino Degregori, engages with innovators and seasoned professionals from diverse sectors, all demonstrating the power of leading with kindness. And now, your host, Gino Degregori.
Today's guest believes that the key to transformative leadership isn't doing more, it's thinking differently. If you ever feel stuck despite your hard work, this episode will resonate deeply. I'm Gino Degregori, and welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast. Our guest today is Amy Kemp, the owner and CEO of Amy Kemp Inc., a leadership coach, speaker, and author of I See You, a guide for women to make more, have more, and be more without more work. With over 20 years in sales and leadership, Amy specializes in helping professionals, especially women, identity and transform subconscious thought habits that hinder growth. Through her certified habit finder, coaching, and transformative programs like Encounter, she empowers leaders to achieve more by doing less, aligning with their true selves. Why does this conversation matter? Amy's approach demonstrates how integrity, self-awareness, and intentional thought patterns can transform leadership, enhance team collaboration, and drive meaningful change. Amy, welcome. To kick us off, can you share with us a little bit about you and your journey?
I would love to. Thank you for having me. I would tell you that my journey into leadership and entrepreneurship and business ownership was accidental at best. I originally wanted to be a college professor. I got my English degree and then found myself realizing that the world of academia was a little too far from people. One particular day, I was in a class with a bunch of people who were PhD students, and I was getting my master's degree. And I looked around the room and thought, no one's really smarter than anyone else at this point. They're just willing to jump through more hoops for a longer period of time. And they were so far removed. It was Marxist literary theory. It was just this really tedious, deep thinking, which I could do, but it was so far from the reality of the world. Right. And I just thought, I don't know if this is for me. And so I just started my professional career teaching high school English, thinking, well, I'll see where this leads. While doing that, I started a small business on the side, and it turns out I'm really good at business. And grew a team and then a business for over 20 years. I was leading about 1,000 people across the country at the peak. And I don't know that I would have identified myself as a leader until I started to really read about leadership. I was so hungry as I was interacting with people and then developing people. I was so hungry to learn what this thing was and how to get better at it. I was just eager to master it because it felt different than anything. And yet it felt like something I'd always done all at the same time. So the business, then I accidentally started a different business while in sales, which that's kind of a long story. But the very short version is that I kept having the same conversation with professional women that I knew just personally. There were a lot of core themes of isolation, exhaustion, overwhelm, but mostly these women were leading at a high level, and they were leading everywhere they were, and they didn't have anywhere where they could not be in charge, where they could just say, like, this is really hard. I'm struggling with this. I don't know what to do about that. And they kept talking to me, but they didn't know each other. And so I just thought if I could get them together, something really magical could happen. So I thought on the side, I'll just gather a group of like 8 to 10 women. And along the way, I went through an extensive certification to use the assessment tool that I use right now called the Habit Finder. I had been a client of that tool in my work before. And so again, I just thought I was scratching an itch that I would just do this like on the side, and it grew really quickly and became a business. So this has been my full-time work. The business is 8 years old, but it's really been my full-time work for about 6 of those 8 years.
Gotcha. Well, congratulations, Amy, for the success, but not only the success, but the impact you are making in
Mm.
people's lives, right? Let's take a pause for that. And I appreciate and admire that, because what you're doing, you're not just touching and helping that individual, you're impacting that person's life and the people around that person.
Mm. Thank
So
you.
amazing.
Thank
Congratulations for
you.
that. And
Thank
it's
you.
funny how your journey, and thanks for sharing that. I mean, the journey has been, you've been following your passion, but in addition to that, you've been listening and allowing for the things to bloom as part of them, right? I mean, there's a
Mm.
lot of some people that's like, should I do that? Should I listen to the other voice? And like, I don't know about that, right? But it sounds like you've been, that little itch, right? That you keep scratching and
Uh,
scratching and scratching. You've been able to.
it's so funny you say this because I call that the whisper.
Hmm.
And it's actually something I've really been writing about, talking about a lot lately, which is the world is really loud right now.
Hmm.
And even for me, I have found it more difficult to hear the whisper. And so I've really been challenging myself, especially in the last couple of months, to protect and guard with my life the spaces in which I hear the whisper,
Yeah.
because it's soft. It doesn't scream at you. It's more of a like an unveiling or a revealing, and it's slow, but it's quiet. It doesn't scream. And
Right.
so when there's a lot of screaming going on, or even just a lot of noise in my own head, the disciplines of even things like working in the yard
Right.
or walking, exercise,
Right.
just all those things are so important to me. And even more important right now, I think, than ever before for
Mhm.
leaders.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to talk about that, and I want to put a pin on it,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
I want to get into the first kind of foundational question that I ask all my guests, and then we'll dive into kind of the meat and
Yeah.
potatoes here. So, and the question that I ask all my guests is, what does being a kind leader mean to you?
Mm. I am so interested in the origin of this question because I found it to be compelling. In fact, I spent quite a bit of time this morning even thinking about it. I'm hearing a lot of narrative. You can't be a kind leader in this world today.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm hearing a lot of that. Like you've got to be this or that. And
Right.
it's sort of this, I just wholeheartedly reject it because all of my lived experience goes against the
Yeah.
narrative that you can't be that and
Right.
be. Now, what I think the misinterpretation is there's a difference between being a kind leader and being a nice
Yep.
leader.
Yep.
I think being kind is having clarity with your expectations of people, and those expectations can be very high.
Hmm.
In fact, I think most people want them to be.
Right.
I think being a kind leader means giving accurate feedback, being accurate with people.
Yep.
That's not always sugarcoating
Right.
things. I do think there are ways that you can communicate that feedback where it can be received more effectively. But I also think the leader's responsibility in being kind is to constantly be taking down walls. I think most people are walking around with these invisible walls of
Yeah.
resistance
Yep.
around them. And as a leader, particularly, they're going to be walled up to you because they're trying to put their best foot forward. They're trying to impress you. There's like a level of separation there, and there should be a
Mhm.
little bit. But as a leader, I think it's my responsibility to be curious and to be constantly asking questions that take down people's walls. One, so that I can give the accurate feedback and they
Yeah.
can receive it, but also because I need to know what's really going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And the loudest voices in an organization aren't always the ones you should listen to. I always had a couple of people, there were like 3 or 4 people that I would seek out information because they were busy working. They weren't
Yeah.
complaining or, they were busy doing their job, but they did have feedback that was really
Right.
helpful. And so I think that constant of a leader just walking around, noticing, asking, looking, being curious is very kind. And I think that's our responsibility. I think that's why you get paid more,
Yeah.
frankly,
Absolutely.
is because it's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you for sharing, Amy. I mean,
yeah.
that's a great. Actually, this one of the first, after doing this for the 51st time, the first time I've heard someone describe it as a kind leader, your job is to break down walls or bring down
Mm,
those walls. And I think the translation to that is making the connection and building the trust to allow
yeah.
the other side to open up and create that space, the safe space where people can feel like they can truly communicate and tell you what's going on.
Totally. A friend of mine, we were just having this conversation in the organization where he works. They have a new leader, and this leader has kind of come in, I would describe it like power over,
Yeah.
very screaming and just really harsh with words. And so I was just asking him about that experience. And this is where I think your question resonates with me.
Yeah.
As I said, so are you doing better work? Is it getting a better result
Right.
than, he's worked under lots of different leaders. And he said, I'm doing the worst work of my life.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I'm doing as little as possible. I have ideas that I could share and put
Yeah.
into action that I would have really like helped people. He's like, I'm showing up, doing my job and leaving.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's the part of me where I think, okay, yeah, you can be this take charge, even I think the difference isn't take charge because that's not a bad thing. It's the
No.
cruel underlying energy of it maybe that I
Mhm.
think is where people are not going to give you their best.
And I think is people are going to be afraid, right? And if you don't create
Yes.
the safe space where they can truly be honest, share those feelings, emotions, even as well
Fears.
as all of that, right? I'd be like, hey,
Mhm.
Mr. or Mrs. Boss, right? Here's, I appreciate everything you're doing, but some blind spots that, you may not be seeing about me and my contribution and what can bring value to this team, to this organization,
Mhm.
X, Y, and Z. Here's some of the things right? That is such
Yeah.
a easy to say, hard to do for sure, right?
Yes. And here's the other thing that because I'm even in my head, I'm hearing the pushback of
Yeah,
people will take advantage of you.
right.
You have to be a tough guy. You've got to show up.
Yeah,
Some of the best leaders I've worked under, or I would say in sports, even like some of the coaches I've had that were the best, they were intense. I mean, I got really
yeah,
intense feedback from
yeah.
them, but it was never cruel.
Right. Yeah,
And it wasn't out of control or it
yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
just done, it wasn't wielded like a weapon.
yeah.
Even I knew they were right.
Right, right.
Even if in the moment I was like, what in the
Yeah.
world?
Right, right, right.
Later I would say, yeah, I wasn't giving it my
Yeah.
best at that moment.
And then as a leader, also the hard part is not just from the employee talking to the boss or the leader, but it's also as a leader talking to your subordinates. That is also hard too.
Mhm.
How do I approach this conversation where I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but at the same time, if I'm not kind and clear on the things and expectations of what I'm
Mhm.
expected for this individual to perform, things are not going to happen. You're going to let it, and that's the
Totally.
difference between being nice and let it go away on its own or be the opposite and just be, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
there's that
Right.
balance of communicate with clear and being certain about the things and provide that candid feedback to the individual with
Mhm.
some examples or recommendations or even open it ended like here's what I'm seeing, here's my perspective. Am I right? What am I missing?
Mhm.
So you can
Yep.
open it up and invite the other individual to express themselves. They could say, you're wrong or you're right, but now you start opening, creating that open dialogue potentially.
Yes. One of the habits of thinking that I work with clients on is this it's non confrontational. It's a habit of thinking that tells your subconscious brain is telling
Hmm.
you either I address this and it blows up and it's catastrophic, end of the relationship, I leave the company,
Right.
whatever, or I say nothing.
Hmm.
It's a systemic, your brain is doing all or nothing.
Yeah.
So what happens is that by avoiding it,
Hmm.
it builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up. And then most of the time, it does end up in some sort of blow up where it all comes out and it's more damaging to the relationship or to the situation than if it was just addressed awkward.
Yeah.
Yes. awkwardly, but if you let some of the pressure out along the way,
Mhm.
you'll find it way easier. I just talked to a client this week and she was talking about this interaction with her boss, and she was avoiding a conversation where she needed to tell the boss she didn't like the way something went in a meeting,
Yeah.
and so we were kind of walking through that. And I said, well, what if you just ignore it? And she's like, well, I don't know. And I said, well, your tone is sort of snippy. Are you
Mhm.
giving her that tone? She said, probably. I'm like, well, she's not stupid. Like, she probably knows you're not happy.
Right,
And
right.
now you're doing this passive aggressive
Yep. Yep.
instead of just being an adult, walking in and saying, hey, I felt uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable even having this conversation, but
Yeah.
it's bothering me.
Right.
And I didn't feel good about the way that meeting went and the way that this thing was addressed.
Yeah.
Right? It's risky. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's like as you were talking, the comment or the phrase that kept popping up is be comfortable being uncomfortable,
Yes.
right? And I think that's where it slows both from both ends, as a leader, as an employee, like it slows us a lot. I mean, I think that's part of our beliefs, that's part of our upbringing, and even the subconscious, the thing, right? Which one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was
Mhm.
the power of thought habits in leadership, because a lot of that, who you are and what you do, are based on your thoughts. Thoughts become
Mhm.
words, words become actions. I don't know if you've heard that kind of
Yeah.
phrase. Then
Yes.
they become habits, right? Of the things that you do. So tell me a little bit about that.
Mhm.
How kind of subconscious thinking pattern influence leadership effectiveness.
It's probably the least talked about, most impactful thing to leaders. We are hardwired to survive. Our brains have grooves in them that help us conserve energy. So we don't want to have to think about breathing or
Yeah.
all of these things that help us
Right.
survive. We also have habits of thinking around things like connection with people, around the process of following a task through to completion, embracing a structure or a system. We have a lot of subconscious habits of thinking. So, in the example I just gave, if you have a subconscious habit of thinking that says, huge blow up, end of relationship at the site of any kind of conflict, if
Yeah.
you learned that at a young age, you probably learned avoid conflict.
Yep.
So your subconscious is going to scream danger, danger, danger,
Mhm.
danger at even the thought of or the opportunity to have any kind of uncomfortable conversation.
Right.
And so that groove, that default, that subconscious habit of thinking will cause you to avoid those conversations, which then again, usually that will end up in creating the very outcome you don't want, which is an unhealthy or ended relationship or a
Yep.
big blow up.
Yep.
It's like you're carrying around this big sack and you just keep throwing things in it. And then
Yep.
it
Yep.
gets so heavy and finally you dump it. And a lot of times we dump it not on the person who created it, which
Correct.
is even more damaging, right?
Mhm.
So all of these subconscious habits of thinking, a lot of times when people take the habit finder assessment that I use, this is like it's a snapshot. If I can unzip your head and look
Mhm.
at where are these grooves? Where are you at risk of falling into these patterns of thinking? For
Mhm.
most people, it's like a dual, how did you know that? But
Mhm.
also, once you see it, you cannot unsee it.
Right.
I mean, you just cannot unsee it. It is so crazy how then you just start to identify these habits that are showing up everywhere. And so while you are not your thoughts, thoughts are just things, they're out there floating around. They impact
Yeah.
our daily experience and how we're interacting with people every second of every day.
Absolutely. And I like what you say, you're not your thoughts. And going deeper onto it
Mhm.
is something I heard. I can't remember who said it, but you are not your thoughts, your feelings, or your emotions,
No.
right? You are the awareness
Mhm.
of those things.
Yes.
And I think the minute you flip that, right? Like you're saying, you cannot unsee it anymore. Like you flip that, because a lot of people are in there like, I am anxious. You're not anxious. You are
Mhm.
experiencing that anxiety right now. You're not an anxious person. You are
Correct.
experiencing that. And you take a step back and you realize that now you can start changing those thought process where, oh, interesting. Okay. well, if I am not anxious and I'm experiencing anxiety, what are the things that are making
Mm,
me go into that anxiety mode, right? Which is a different perspective altogether. All
totally.
the time with kids and all that stuff, everything that's happening around us, right? And people are like, yeah, I'm an anxious person or I'm depressed.
Mm,
You are not depressed.
mhm,
You're experiencing depression
mhm.
because X, Y, and Z. Take a
Yes.
step back. What are those things that are putting you in that situation where you're experiencing those emotions,
Yes.
right?
Yes. In the work I do, we call that being in the observer's chair,
I love that.
where
Yeah.
you are able to step back and sit in a chair and observe the habits of thinking that are flying around and
Yeah.
say, that's interesting that my brain is having such a strong, even violent reaction to this.
Yeah.
I
Right.
wonder what's going on there. And you can approach it with some curiosity, also with compassion.
hmm
Many of our habits of thinking served us really well at some point
Yep.
in our experience. The problem is when you employ a survival mechanism past the point of needing it,
Yeah.
it becomes damaging and detrimental.
Correct.
So maybe growing up, you worked, the way you survived was that you worked really, really, really hard
hmm
and you pleased people and you made sure you got good grades and you did all the things they told you to do, right?
hmm
And that's how you survived harsh feedback from a parent or
Yeah.
an absent parent or whatever. All of those things are great and they helped you survive. So there's no criticism. The problem is if you keep on people pleasing,
Right.
performing to find your sense of value and to survive. I see so many people. I just had a conversation last week where I said to someone, you're going to get sick.
hmm
You can't keep working like this. It's
Yeah.
unsustainable.
Correct. Yeah.
It will damage you. It becomes damaging if you continue to employ. She doesn't need to work like that anymore
Right.
to
Right.
survive, right?
Yeah.
She did, but it's not being critical of yourself. It's being compassionate. Oh, I
hmm
can understand why it feels like danger to get off of this crazy fast treadmill I've been running on for 30
Yeah.
years
Right.
because that's how I survived. And I'm hardwired to do that.
It's
And
how
so,
you
of
used to, right?
course, it's going to feel dangerous or it's going
Right.
to feel uncomfortable. And
Right.
sometimes even it's like screaming danger at you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's fun. I mean, we talked about the whisperer, right? Like I want to
Mm,
bring that
yeah.
back here because this is the perfect kind of discussion here. The topic where we're talking about, that almost you are used to, and anything outside of that, the whisper starts. There's good and other things that are like, well, I'm trying to protect you, right? And then you
Hmm.
listen to
Yep.
those thoughts coming from your mind, or they're coming from your heart, or even your soul, right?
Hmm.
And what I tell people, what I've experienced is the more and more I go deeper into meditation and look for answers within, the more clear I am into what I'm supposed to be doing,
Hmm.
how I'm supposed to be helping. If I'm looking for answers externally, why is this not happening? Or what can I do? Like if I'm looking for those answers externally, I'm going to never find them or not find the right things. But you're here for a reason.
Hmm.
You're
Yep.
here for a purpose. And the deeper you go into yourself, the clearer the answers are going to come up, right? And I think that's connected to those thoughts or those whispers that you say. I mean, does that make
Yes,
sense? Can you expand on that, please?
absolutely. And at the times where I have been the most effective, creative, innovative, inspired, it was when I was able to hear the whisper. Sometimes it's hard also because people will say, if I get quiet, then the noise gets louder.
hmm
The noise in your head, it's harder to hear. But
Yeah,
when I was able to connect, I think through practices like meditation, yoga,
yeah,
prayer, whatever your practice is that allows you to hear that whisper,
right,
those were the times where I was creating and serving people at such a high level. It felt otherworldly, even to
right,
me. It felt like something was happening through me. I talk
yeah,
about this in my book where I work with people from a lot of different faith backgrounds, but every one of them agrees with the belief that there's a source of
yeah,
creation that's bigger than us, that we came from that source
hmm
and that we are still connected to that
yeah,
source. And when we open ourselves to it, that energy can flow through us and out into the world in a way that we could never do on our own. The thing that gets in the way of that flow, however, is all of the noise in our heads and in our world. And so it's this constant practice, daily practice of stilling yourself, particularly in times of transition. I went through a very significant professional transition, and there were like two people during that time that I could even talk to. And one of them was not my husband, because he was attached to my success in the other lane.
Right.
And it was scary to him to think of a change, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
He was too attached. And so I had a coach that I was working with, and I had one friend. And for a stretch of time, that was all I could talk to. I had to just talk to those two people, but also I had to be so quiet and shut off from the rest of the noise because the transition was so tricky and it affected so many people. And that was really difficult. I knew that quiet would be misinterpreted. I knew people would have experiences with it that would be really strong.
Right.
And I had to be okay with that.
Yeah.
I just had to let that happen and really still myself and listen and receive for a long period of time, actually. It's kind of treacherous.
That must have been very scary too. I mean, there's, if you could provide tips into someone right now transitioning or going through that, right? Because, I'm sure they feel like they're in the middle of a storm. They're like, oh man, do I make this decision that, and like, I want to make sure that I'm making the right decision, right? Which one is it, So what are some of the things that people can do to kind of slow that down? And it sounds like you're allowed the things to happen.
Yeah. One is to give it language. It is so helpful to just say, I'm going through a transition right now.
Yeah.
When you can name it and talk about it as an experience, it helps. Also, do not rush through it.
Yeah.
I think transitions, particularly for leaders, have so much information. During transitions, usually everything that is unlike the expansion you're moving toward comes up to be healed or to be eliminated.
Right.
And that means I pay really close attention when my clients are going through transitions or me. Where is the strongest resistance coming from?
Right.
And then usually that will kind of show me like, oh, there's some sort of threat to that person or that organization or that thing that doesn't want this expansion to happen. They are somehow threatened, and that can't really do anything about it, but it's interesting. You can gather a lot of information about where relationships are that probably need to end, or just that need to change, or need to be more boundaried, or need less access to you. But I would say go very slowly. Pay attention to what comes up and where the strongest resistance comes from. Usually the resistance has nothing to do with you. It's everything to do with your change is causing them to have to ask some questions. Even in this isn't small, but I have a lot of clients who sometimes will say, like, they make a decision to stop drinking alcohol, let's say.
Right.
And they'll say, I don't care if anybody else does. They're not doing it.
Right.
They're not asking anyone else to stop drinking.
Right.
But it makes the people around them who are used to them showing up in that space so uncomfortable.
Yep.
It is so crazy. And so I'm always saying to them, just observe it like your choice is causing them to ask questions about something in their life, and they're having to remake a decision or a commitment to something.
Yeah.
That's not your fault. It's just your change is forcing that to happen.
Right.
You're disrupting the whole ecosystem, the social ecosystem you've created. And so it's okay.
Right.
Just expect that when you're going through a transition, that will happen. Don't be surprised when people come back with harsh feedback or cajoling or teasing or come on, are you crazy? Or, they will give you a lot of feedback about choices you're making to change in new ways.
So So essentially, and I love that. Thank you very much for
Mm-hmm.
sharing that. It's a great kind of tip for people in transition. I feel like I've been transitioning for 8 years or so, and
I'm on 7, so.
yeah. But one thing that kept coming up, what resists persists. I don't know if you've heard that, right? And if
Mm-hmm.
you continue to resist, that will persist your evolution, your transition, right?
Yeah.
So lean into it. And like
Yeah.
you said, be compassionate to yourself. And the changes that you're going to be making are for yourself, not for anybody else,
Yeah.
right? Not for anybody
And
else.
they will be misunderstood.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're a leader. People
Yeah.
will have all sorts of judgments. And in fact, I just had someone come up to me at an event recently. I write about my professional transition in my book, and she
Yeah.
was a part of my past professional life. And
Yeah.
she said, I have to apologize. And I said, for what? I didn't, she didn't do anything to me. And she said,
Yeah.
I've been sitting in harsh judgment for
Mhm.
years of you.
Wow.
Which I didn't know. It didn't matter
Yeah.
to me. But she
Right.
said, I've been judging the decisions that you made. I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
And now that I read this, I think, oh my goodness, I just didn't understand what was happening
Yeah.
inside of me. Also, just what was happening in the circumstance, right? And so I think it's just a reminder also to check yourself to that judgment as well.
Yeah.
People are making decisions about things for their own reasons.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Anyhow, it was interesting because she just said, I was so critical and angry, and I just thought you were being so selfish and so money
Yeah.
hungry and so blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. She had
Interesting.
all this like critical
Right.
judgment energy around it. And I kind of wanted to say too, man, what if you could have put all that energy toward creating your own thing, right?
Exactly.
But, that's just
And
what it is.
unfortunately, that is a lot of that lower frequency energy that we're
Mm,
facing right now, right? It's
yeah.
easier to grasp into that. It's easier to be that victim mentality, right? Just because
Yes,
it's, I don't want to say safe, but it's just the norm nowadays, right?
I
All
think
people are
so.
always complaining about this. And the hardest part is kind of coming through that, pushing through and be like,
Mhm.
I want to focus on myself, right? I want to build myself to become a better person, be that light so I can start shining and helping others, right?
Yes.
And I think once you start thinking like that and creating, one of the things I love saying is we rise together, right?
Mm.
Like if I'm rising, I want everybody around rising me and how we can become better.
I think that the most potent antidote to this victimy, cruel form of
Yeah.
leadership that I'm seeing on the rise right now is creation.
Mm.
I don't think you fight back against it because that's the same kind of energy.
Yeah.
I think you acknowledge it, you watch it, observe it, but you then preserve your best energy for creating spaces that are safe for people to flourish.
Yeah.
You create the inspired idea that comes in the whisper. That's
Right.
the antidote to it.
Yeah.
I don't think you engage with it and battle with it because then you
Yeah.
become like it, right? I think it's
Absolutely.
more of okay, I see that happening. I'm going to choose this other path.
Right.
I'm going to choose to create and protect my energy for that.
Absolutely. I see you, Amy. I see you for
Mm.
sure. I really love that, by the way. And I really mean what I said. I see you, but also I love
Mm.
your book,
Mm.
the title. I love that. I'm like, how'd you come up with that kind of title? Usually is a
Mm.
catchy thing, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know if you came up with the title before you wrote or came up with the title after you wrote, but it's
Yes.
not only catchy, but it's such a connected phrase that I see you. And I think it's a phrase that not that many people are saying nowadays, right? And I
Mhm.
think it's so impactful if I'm talking to my subordinate or a leader. It's like, I see you, who you are, and what you're doing. How can we, what I'm so,
Mhm.
can
Yes.
you expand on that and tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about like how you
There's
came up with that idea?
there's actually a really cool South African greeting where people in South Africa will say "Sawubona,"
Yeah.
and it means "I see you." And
Yeah.
in passing, that's what they say to one another instead of like hello, which I think
Yeah.
is a really cool greeting. The title of the book, actually, I had to kind of really defend and It was the one thing with my publisher where I took a stand that I wouldn't back down from, is that
Yeah.
that was the title. They wanted the title to be more central to me, that I was like the expert coming in.
Right.
But my reader, she's already read all of the experts. She
Yeah,
doesn't,
right.
it's not, she's read all of the books.
Yeah.
This book isn't about me. This book is about her. So the title came through a conversation. I was at a local community event, was introduced to just kind of a long distance acquaintance.
Yeah.
And I really liked her. And so I reached out and said, I'd love to have coffee. We met at a local coffee shop. For about an hour, I listened to her story. I just asked to hear about her professional journey.
Yeah.
About 55 minutes in, she very brusquely interrupted me and said, "Why did you invite me to coffee?" And I looked her in the eye. I said the first thing that came to my mind, which was, "I see you."
That's powerful.
And she put her head in her hands and just wept.
Yeah.
And this is a woman who, her decisions impact thousands of people in our community. She's on all the boards. She's leading her family well. Everyone sees her. And she kind of collected herself and wiped her eyes and sat up and she said, "Thank you. So few people do."
Yeah.
And so that was the inspiration for the title. I knew right then that would be the title of the book, because that's the person I wrote the book for.
Beautiful.
Is that leader who everyone sees, but no one sees.
Yeah. I love it, Amy. I mean, I am going to be reading your book, so I know it's not for me. It sounds like
I don't know. I'd be surprised. I have a lot of men tell me that I should not just market it toward women, but I told them they have the rest of the business books. So I'm going
to. But I think it's a perspective too that I would love to learn too, right? As it relates to the communication and connecting, because I actually didn't use the "I see you" phrase with another leader in another company, somebody that I know and trust, right? And he was going through some challenges, and you can see that he was just grinding to push, to not give up and take this company to the next level. And unfortunately, his like the entrepreneur, the boss of the owner, kind of passed away, and he was still having to drive that, right, and push it. And he wasn't owning the company, but he was still driving this company to success, and he did, right? And nobody took the minute to tell him, "I see you. I see what you've done. I see what you've accomplished," without any true benefit or outcome afterwards. You care so much about everything around you, and you've taken that to the next level. And let me tell you, I didn't benefit from any of that, but I'm seeing the things that you've done. And that gentleman just broke down into tears.
It's so powerful. And because they're doing so much, leaders are, right? I think it's also a good warning for leaders, or a good challenge, maybe is a better word. Don't get so busy that you aren't seeing your people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I mean, a lot of times the best producers move up and become leaders, and I don't think that's a bad thing, but it's a different job.
Yeah.
And it requires less doing and more being and more noticing and more seeing than doing. And so that's a huge shift. It's sort of like telling someone, you're on a bike, you're pedaling as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Now, when you're a leader, you downshift or up, I don't know which way it goes, but you can actually do fewer revolutions of your feet and travel further by going slower in those leadership roles than by continuing to pedal as fast as you can.
Absolutely. You know, Amy, I know you and I can talk for, I love this conversation. I love your energy, by the way. I really, and the energy and the way you communicate is very comforting, and you and I feel like we can talk all day long on this. But as we continue, one of the things that I love doing is flip the mic, is what I call, where I'm allowing my guests here to ask me any question. Do you have a particular question that you would like to ask me?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, what is one thing that you know now more confidently than you did a year ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago? Like, what is one thing that you know to be more true now?
Trust my instincts and my gut.
Oh,
Like I always question it, right? And I was like, and now I was telling you about go within, right? Like the answers
mm,
are within you. I've always questioned it. I've always like, is that right? Is that wrong? You know what I mean? It's like, how do I know that's the correct approach that we should be moving towards,
hmm,
or decisions that I'm making? Truly go in deep, either meditate, pray, walk around, right, and find those answers. And I will, I'm still learning, right? But I go within, and
mm,
the minute I feel this energy in frequency for that matter, where I'm in alignment with my purpose, I'm in alignment with the words just starts flowing, the energy just starts coming out, and the creation and ideas just start coming through. In addition to that, I start attracting people that are supposed to be in my life, that are supposed to be in that particular journey, right? So it's just amazing. So great question. It's like
mm.
that's look within. So
That's a great answer.
all right, so we go into rapid fire questions
Sure.
here. What's one book outside of your book that you would recommend?
Little known book by John Maxwell called The 5 Levels of Leadership, where he talks about moving from that productive person, productive leader, to being a developer of people, to
Mm,
actually really truly then developing other leaders.
yeah.
But this kind of ladder that you climb as a leader and develop.
Mhm. I love that. Thank you. What's a favorite quote or mantra?
Mm, if you're going to make up a story, you might as well make up a good one.
I like that. If you could have coffee with anyone in the past or present, who would it be and why?
Right now, I would love to talk to Brene Brown.
Mm.
She's been super quiet lately. I'm curious about why. I want to know what she's working on. I also admire her academic approach to this work. And so I just have a list of questions for her
Yeah, yeah,
that I
yeah.
think she could answer in a private conversation, but mostly I'm curious about her absence from the spaces I love to listen to right now.
Yeah.
And I want to know why. I want to know what she's working on and creating.
Beautiful. Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah, I'm curious
Mhm.
now too. That's something great. The next section is something you've been doing here in the last 5 podcasts is the Kind Leadership Challenge. And I don't have a predetermined challenge at the beginning, and then based on the conversation, it just comes up. So the one I want to challenge people out there and I ask them to do is based on your book, I see you, right?
Mhm.
Hashtag I see you, hashtag Kind Leader Challenge. Put any experience that you've experienced out there as it relates to either you've seen somebody, right? You've talked to somebody, you've impacted their lives, or somebody came to you. Like, just, you don't have to
Mm.
tell me details, tell us details. Just what have you experienced? It's such a powerful, powerful phrase, right? A comment that I see you. And obviously, tag myself and tag Amy as well. So we can kind of provide any additional feedback and support there. But great. So, Amy, where can our listeners connect with you or learn more about you?
Sure. If you tag me on Instagram, it's Amy Kemp Inc. So AMYKEMP Inc. And I'd love to have you follow me there. The easiest place to find me and my work is at my website, which is just my name. So amykemp.com. I would invite you, the Habit Finder assessment that I talked about
Yeah, that's
earlier,
right.
you can take it for free. So you get your results right away. It's fascinating. And I think you'll learn a lot about what's going on below the surface of your
Yeah,
mind in that subconscious realm, and you'll enjoy the results.
beautiful. What is a final message you would like to leave with our leaders here?
I think the final message is as a leader, never apologize for the investment in growing you or feel guilty about that investment. There is a multiplication of the benefits of an investment in a leader. I've also never seen an organization or a business or a nonprofit or any kind of group of people grow without a leader at the helm who is also growing. It is the fastest way to create growth. And yet, we overlook it or we diminish its importance in the budget. And so I just would challenge you to always have that be a component, something that you make a priority.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's something that I'm doing and learning and growing and really pushing hard to learn within the organization, right? Truly be that kind leader that we all want us to be. So thank you, Amy. Thank you for sharing your journey, all the wisdom that you share with us and the information about your book. I love that title. Again, I keep saying I see you, and and I do see you and everything that you're doing, all the lives that you've impacted. Thank you for being you, and please continue to shine that light and impact others in this world. So thank you for being here. And for our listeners, thank you for listening to the Kind Leader Podcast. And remember, be kind, bring value, and rise together. Have an amazing day, everybody.